The 80s was a good time for Japan, and a good time for anime. It gave us such great anime like Akira and Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Towards the end of this decade, an OVA would come out that would garner a lot of popularity. But despite its popularity, this franchise had a bit of a rocky history, including having episodes cut, cancellations, and even lawsuits. Yo, what's up guys? I'm the Anime Top Scholar, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 1987 OVA called Bubblegum Crisis, its sequels, as well as the lost sequel series called Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2041. Alright, so to get everyone up to speed, let's start at the beginning with the original Bubblegum Crisis OVA from 1987. Bubblegum Crisis was an 8-episode cyberpunk anime that released between 1987 and 1991. It was produced by Yormex and animated by AIC and Artmic, with Katsuhito Akiyama serving as the chief director for the project. The story takes place in late 2032, 7 years after the second Great Kanto earthquake flattened Tokyo. A new city called Mega Tokyo was created, in no small part thanks to the mega corporation called Genome Corp. Genome also created biochemical creatures called boomers to help with the restoration of Mega Tokyo. But sometimes, boomers get out of control, and it's up to the 80 police to deal with them. However, the boomers turns out to be a bigger problem than anticipated. Now, a group of 4 girls, calling themselves the Night Sabers, have taken it upon themselves to defeat the boomers and stop the evil plans of Genome. So, Bubblegum Crisis is a very 80s show. The series takes a lot of inspiration from other 80s movies like Blade Runner, Streets of Fire, and even Terminator. Hell, the opening to episode 1 is inspired by the opening to Streets of Fire, and it's fucking great. Nothing like breaking out the 80s hair metal band to start. Now, sadly, despite the strong start, the show itself gets a bit shaky as it continues. Part of this might be because the show was originally supposed to be 13 episodes, but ended up being cut down to only 8. But I don't think that's the only reason. While the show does a decent job with the action, the character development is a bit lacking. Priscilla and Celia are arguably the ones from the Night Sabers who gets the most development, and that's great. But there's still a lot lacking from the other characters. Leon, for example, is one of the highest ranking officers in the 80 police, and he and Priscilla gets a bit of a side story of their own. But for the most part, he is very one-note and not really all that interesting. Couple that with both Nene and Lina from the Night Sabers being fairly shallow characters, especially Nene. This kinda ruins the dynamic of the Night Sabers in my opinion, and is one of the biggest problems I have with the series. Now, it's still only 8 episodes, so it's not the biggest issue, but knowing that it was supposed to be 13 episodes makes me wonder if they could have done at least a little bit more with them if they had that time. But still, the show is a decent 80s OVA, and the fact that it got some episodes cut was not enough to stop the show from continuing. Bubblegum Crisis' popularity would be enough to spawn sequels, remakes, and spin-offs. In 1991, the 3-episode OVA called Bubblegum Crash was released. This OVA was set in 2034 and attempted to continue the story of the Night Sabers after the events of the first OVA. It was conjectured that it was to be a shortened version of how Crisis was supposed to end, but Yomex and Artmic had split up before the release of this OVA, and Yomex ended up suing Artmic, which resulted in the OVA being cut short and tying the entire franchise up in legal issues for the next several years. Because of this, Bubblegum Crash ended up leaving us on a very sour note, as it introduced another plot point in regards to Celia of the Night Sabers, but we never end up seeing that play out. It's honestly a shame, because I think the original 2 Bubblegum Crisis OVAs could have been really good, but stuff like the lawsuits and it getting episodes cut ended up hurting the series a bit too much. It made an otherwise fun 80s OVA into just another unfinished show. And Lord knows there wasn't exactly a lack of those back in the 80s and 90s. But there would still be hope for Bubblegum Crisis as a franchise towards the end of the 90s. In 1998, Bubblegum Crisis received a reboot in the form of the 26-episode TV series called Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040. This series would serve as a retelling of the original 1987 OVA, and it would once again put Bubblegum Crisis back into the spotlight. What surprised a lot of fans though, was that instead of wrapping up the series, the final episodes of Tokyo 2040 opened up a new page to a whole new chapter. Due to this, fans were hoping that this would mean more Bubblegum Crisis to come in the future, and their hopes would eventually be realized. You see, ADV Films announced in late 2002 that a follow-up series had been greenlit, and it was in pre-production. The series was called Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2041, and it was to be marketed to investors at France MIPCOM trade show that same year. Now, sadly there wasn't a great deal of information in regards to this sequel series, but obviously, this is exactly what fans had hoped for. A sequel. The only information that did come out was that the series would be 26 episodes of 25 minutes each, just like the previous series. However, time would pass with no new information in regards to the series for quite a few years. But in 2007, at Anime Central's convention, ADV co-founder Matt Greenfield had some bad news. The series had been put on hold in order to have all the key members of Tokyo 2040 reprise their roles. This was obviously not good news for the sequel, but if it meant getting everyone who worked on the first one back to work on this one, it's understandable that they would make this decision. It's not unusual that the staff from the previous series would be busy with other works, since it had been such a long time since the first series. So maybe if everyone would just be a little patient, the show would come out when it was ready. Well, that looks extremely unlikely, because in 2009, ADV Films would dissolve, and despite nothing being stated, people just assumed that the project had been shelved indefinitely. Understandably so, as unless someone else decides to pick this series up, it will probably never see the light of day, and considering how many years it's been since the last time we got anything Bubblegum Crisis related, Parasite Dolls from 2003 being the last, I doubt the chances of Tokyo 2041 ever seeing the light of day is slim. Though you never know, if someone sees that there's still interest in Bubblegum Crisis and decides to try and revive it, there might yet be another twist in this tale. Alright, so that was Bubblegum Crisis and its lost sequel. I hope you enjoyed these videos as much as I enjoy making them. It's always fun to look into this stuff. I was originally just gonna make a video about the lost Bubblegum Crisis sequel, but this one was pretty straightforward in regards to why it's not available. So I thought it would be better to just use it as an excuse to talk about Bubblegum Crisis as a whole. It's definitely a shame that there is so little to find about it, no production materials or anything has been released, so we don't even know how far they got with it before ADV had to close down. But that's just how these things go sometimes. Anyways, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, then don't forget to leave a like, and drop me a comment if there are any other lost anime you would like me to talk about. Also, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like this, you can go and check out the video I made about the lost Toho anime by Ufotable. Peace!